What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast networking channel. Just want to give a shout out to the rest of the crew. I'm talking about Shy, Kelvin, and Jermaine, along with Kobe Bryant Film Room and Big Dog Sports TV. And for everyone who's tuning in, I hope that you support Behind the Bench, become a subscriber, and help make the show the best that it can be. And we have reached over 150,000 plus views, and now have the support of 1,000 plus subscribers. So, like I said, it's a winning combination, and we appreciate you. And we're going to continue providing that sports content at the highest level possible. Now, let's talk some NBA. Last night's action, Wednesday night, we saw two Western Conference foes go at it. I'm talking about the New Orleans Pelicans and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are the top seed in the West as we speak, and the New Orleans Pelicans have steadily improved their play and their intensity and their focus ever since losing the in-season tournament to the Los Angeles Lakers. But sometimes you can take a setback and turn it into a push for the ages to where you start reaching your potential as a squad. Or I should say the springboard, the lightning rod. Maybe that's what their loss to the Lakers was. Because really ever since then, they turned up a notch. And really prior to losing that in-season tournament game to the Lakers, these are the teams who they beat. They beat Minnesota early in the season. They beat the Dallas Mavericks. They beat the Sacramento Kings twice. They beat the defending champion, Denver Nuggets. And they beat the Los Angeles Clippers. So they were beating the top teams in the West. Now they're taking up another level because they went on the road last night, the Pelicans. Went into Minnesota where they had lost one home game all season. And they boast the number one ranked defense. But it didn't matter, and it sure didn't look like it. As the Pelicans beat the Timberwolves by the score 117-106. But the score isn't a true reflection of how dominant the Pelicans were throughout their game. And Brandon Ingram got things started in a major way in the first quarter, scoring mid-range jumper after mid-range jumper after mid-range jumper, so much so to where if he's not leading the league in mid-range points, he's in the top three. Then it seemed like from there, Brandon Ingram, B.I., said to his teammate C.J. McCollum, you got it next. You take over. And then after that point, then they both went to Zion Williamson and said, you finished the deal. This team right here, pound for pound, I believe is the deepest team in the league. I believe that when you look at this roster from 1 to 10, they have all the elements to pursue and vie for a championship. And what's scary is they could make a move during the trade deadline to stake that claim, to put themselves in that position. Now, mind you, they played last night without their best shooter, Trey Murphy, and they have another shooter who's recovering from injury, and Matt Ryan, and they still have Jordan Hawkins, rookie sensation from the University of UConn, who was the nation's top three-point shooter when he was drafted. entering the league. Won a national championship, by the way. But what's really turning this team around is not just the exceptional play of Ingram, Zion Williamson, and C.J. McCollum. Herb Jones played big last night, too. Their best defender in the starting five. He scored 16 points last night, and he hit his three-point attempts to corner threes. Then you had one of the best centers in basketball, one of the top 6'7" centers in Jonas Valanciunas. But ever since Larry Nance Jr. returned back from injury, I believe he suffered a broken rib early in the season. Ever since he returned back to the lineup, the team's defense has taken another step towards dominance. Then they had the pesky one, Jose Alvarado. They call him Grand Theft Alvarado. And then second-year defensive wing Dyson Daniels, who also can run the point. When you look at this team, now, and then along with Najee Marshall, who I believe is in his third season. He's in his third season. I believe he was drafted from the University of Xavier, if I'm not mistaken. This team has it all. And I'm going to say 60% of possibly, no, I'm going to say 2/3 of this roster is an extension of that Anthony Davis trade back during the summer 2019, where Brandon Ingram was included in that trade. And during that offseason, the New Orleans Pelicans was given the number one pick, where they won the top overall pick in that year's draft lottery, and they selected Zion Williamson. Because of the draft picks that were included in the Anthony Davis trade, they were able to utilize those draft picks to include in trade packages for C.J. McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas. And also, they traded down in the draft 3 summers ago. Well, we'll say 2 summers ago, during the 2021 draft, and they selected Trey Murphy out of the University of Virginia. And during the second season last year, he elevated his game to the point where he started recording 50. He became a 50-40-90 player. 50% shooting from the 2-point area, 40% shooting the 3-point shot, and 90% from the free throw line. He's become a 50-40-90 player in only his second year. Then in that same draft where they selected Trey Murphy, they was able to draft Herb Jones in the second round. All this is in direct affiliation with the Anthony Davis trade. So when you look at this Pelicans team, what they are starting to resemble is what the Los Angeles Lakers could have built their roster up like. Actually, what they had built their roster up like by the summer of 2018. This team is as versatile as it comes, and the main attribute of this team is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. To where when it comes to Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, you really don't know who's the number one guy. You really don't know who's the number one player. On some nights it could be Zion, on some nights it could be B.I., Brandon Ingram. Then you have C.J. McCollum to the mix, who can get you 18, 20 points a game. He's really 19 point per game, 19, 20 point per game score. Valanciunas can get you the double doubles. But it's their depth that's overwhelming teams. And they're getting better and better and better. And as it stands, they are now in the 5th place in the Western Conference. Now, the Timberwolves, as I said before, they're the number one seed in the West, And Anthony Edwards did score 35 points last night, but it was mainly academic as Minnesota was playing catch up throughout the course of the game, and the Pelicans led up in the fourth quarter. Like I said, at one point, they was up by 24, 25 points. And with this new offensive system that they're running, that's being directed by assistant coach James Borrego and Willie Green, head coach Willie Green leadership, this team has a future that is bright as it comes, along with the Oklahoma City Thunders, along with the, Sacramento Kings, the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's 4 teams right there. The Dallas Mavericks have Luka, who is as great as he is right now. He still hasn't reached his prime. And then they have Kyrie Irving on their team. And they drafted Derek Lively in the first round this year. And then you have the Clippers, who are hot. The Clippers are red hot. They playing great basketball over the past 2.5 weeks or so. So what I'm trying to say is the New Orleans Pelicans, if Zion Williamson can reach his potential down there in New Orleans, there's not a team in the Western Conference that they play in who can match up to try to stop him. See, if he start playing to his potential, then it's lights out. They can actually vie for the championship this year. And as I mentioned, they can make a move during the trade deadline, and they still have one more draft pick coming from the Anthony Davis trade. And see, this is the thing. When you hear this lingo out here, this prevailing notion that draft picks don't mean anything, well, take a look at the Pelicans roster. Take a look at Oklahoma City Thunder's roster. They not signing free agents down there in OKC. They drafting players. But as it stands right now, they're the number 2 seed. The number 2 seed. So, like I said, Minnesota Timberwolves, they're having a tremendous season, best start in franchise history. And they ran to a team that I believe is deeper than them. I believe as great as Minnesota's playing, if healthy, the Pelicans have the deepest roster. I feel the deepest roster in the NBA. And it's starting to show. And it's catching a lot of teams off guard, and they really don't know how to game plan against this team. So imagine them in a playoff situation where you have one of the top centers in the league. You have a premier combo wing player in Brandon Ingram. Well, the center is Jonas Valanciunas. You have a premier combo, a wing, 2-guard facilitator in Brandon Ingram, who, as I mentioned before, if he's not leading the league in mid-range points, he's in the top 3. That mid-range jumper that he's perfecting is getting better and better and better and better and better. Where he's developed multiple spots on the court to get that shot off. Then you have the ultimate inside player outside of Joel Embiid. But as far as a power forward, Zion Williamson is arguably the most efficient scorer in the paint throughout the entire league. So you add that, you have 3 layers of scoring on their team, and that's before you get to the 3-point shooting. Then they have defensive specialists on this team. They have multiple facilitators on this team. And that's why I say the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's the New Orleans Pelicans. But they have superstars. They have guys that can break a defense down. They can get hot, and they can go for 30, 35. So I love the way they building their team. Like I said, I'm a fan of all these young teams. And the veteran teams, they're steady plugging away at it. The Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he led that team to the title 3 years ago. First time in 50 years since 1971. Man, he went down in history. And see, this is what I envision the NBA to be once the decade of the 2020s started to move forward. I don't think we're going to see a team go to 4 straight finals, make consecutive final appearances at that level. I think it's going to be a situation where you got the defending champion Denver Nuggets right now, and they have a chance to return back to the finals and repeat because they finished the season having the best player in the league on his roster in Nikola Jokic, 2-time league MVP. But I think there's so much talented young squads out there to where they can make an increment change to their roster that can help them overtake a team that broke through the previous year and won. And I think it's great for the league. I think it's awesome for the league. And, this is why I've been a stickler versus the super team era, because I think what we're seeing now in the 2020s, we could have saw in the previous decade in the 2010s. But once that super team took over the landscape, it distorted the league dynamic in so many ways. But slowly but surely, that influence is losing ground and is giving way to real basketball again. What I mean by real basketball is teams building the right way from scratch, where the draft is the primary means of which they're trying to build a long-standing roster for success. But one of the teams that has clearly adapted that model are the Pelicans. And they have a great mix of young players coming in, veteran young players, and then their 2 oldest players are like around that 30-year, 31-year-old mark. So it's I believe the team is being built perfectly, to where, it's more about they have the talent. It's more about improving on the nuances of the game. That's where the Pelicans are at. And then just getting that experience going through playoff basketball with a healthy Zion Williamson. They haven't had a healthy Zion Williamson to reach the playoffs, since he's been on the team. Like I said, they did reach the playoffs 2 seasons ago in the first round, where Brandon Ingram did lead that team to the postseason. And he averaged like 27, 6, and 6 in their series versus Phoenix. And he did have 4 straight games where he scored 30 points or more. So he showed his game is tailor-made for playoff basketball. It's tailor-made for it. And that's why I believe if they stay healthy, they will peak at the right time, and their depth will take over. And I believe they had the deepest roster in the NBA. It's just a matter of proving who they are now. And that's another small market team. They could be, one of those franchises that wins their first ever NBA World Championship. That's what I see out of this team. I believe they're going to win a championship within the next 2 seasons. I believe they can win a championship, and I believe they will break through and win one. Or vie for one, I put it that way, because it still has to be proven on the court. But I love the way the team is built. I'm a fan of Brandon Ingram, by him being drafted by the Lakers back in 2016. And, if he helped contribute to making history, he will go down as such. How fast the table turns, man. Just 3 years ago, it seemed like the shortcut route and win now was the correct way to pursue success. But in all actuality, it's really a fleeting moment in time. But hey, I just want to drop that nugget, man. I'm looking forward to them. They play the Clippers next to Los Angeles Clippers this Friday. That's going to be a huge game, because now you're talking about 4th place and 5th place at stake. Between the Clippers and the Pelicans, and the Clippers are peaking at the right time, and it's gonna be a battle all the way through. From here on out, the Western is gonna be a battle. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna get you primed, get you ready for postseason play. And as a matter of fact, The Pelicans have, I believe, the hardest schedule for the month of January, and they've already started off on the right foot, beating number 1 seed team in the Western Conference on the road in the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, I believe they're ready. So, we'll see what happens next. But I just wanted to drop that nugget right there. The Pelicans are one of those teams that can be mainstays in the Western Conference for the next 5-6 years or for years to come. And it's all courtesy of that trade that happened 4 years ago. That was the springboard. After losing that superstar franchise player, they say, you know what? We're going to build a team that's going to be deeper than anybody else's. And everything's working according to plan. So until next time, I just want to drop that nugget. I know this was kind of lengthy, but I just want to, break things down. That's what I enjoy doing. But until next time, this is JB for BTB, Behind the Bench.